Unlocking doors to your dream home. Keys to the Castle takes you on a real estate journey like never before. Welcome to the podcast where every key opens a door to possibilities.
Welcome to the Keys to the Castle podcast. My name is Bisendra Melaram. I'm here with Mr. J. Marcus of Mr. J. Marcus's Neighborhood. He's a mortgage professional. Hi, Jay. How are you today?
I am awesome. Thanks for having me.
And also joining us is Jason Kleiger, attorney at law.
Thank you, Bisendra. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for being here. So the next series of podcasts, we'll be talking about first-time homebuyers and the process and the steps required to purchase your first home. A lot of the information that we'll be covering is applicable to first-time home sellers as well, because they will be buying a home. As always, all the information will be in the show description. And if you'd like to ask either one of us a question directly, our social media handles will be in the description as well. Feel free to reach out. We're always available, except for holidays.
I'll be available on holidays.
Bank holidays, I don't work. No, I'm just kidding.
I literally get calls on Thanksgiving every year. So
Do you really?
you never know. It's like at any point in time, you guys know, I mean, at any point in time with what we do,
Yeah.
any second of any day, it's like, boom, you're in motion.
Right. So the reason that all three of us are here is because I believe that the three of us together make this phenomenal team, a proactive team that leverages each other's strengths to make a seamless transaction. And I'd like to give that information to those who are outside of our service area or who may be thinking of purchasing in our service area so they can get the best service they can possibly have during this time. So Jay, Mr. Marcus, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the business?
So I started in the year 2000. So obviously this is year 23. Up and through a bunch of these cycles. So this particular cycle is interesting because it takes me back to the beginning of when I started doing this, when REITs were over 7%. And it was a little bit more of a challenge in the educating of potential clients and understanding the pros and cons and getting involved in a market like this. So it's really interesting because I learned so much about this market so long ago. And now all this stuff is starting to come back to me in regards to those sales approaches and techniques and education.
Right. And so I got licensed back in 2002. And little did I know that I'd be experiencing what you just said, which is a market that was down, high interest rates. You know, a lot of foreclosures were happening in like 2006, with like the highlight of my career. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, people don't realize it's a cycle, right? That I call it the 10-year cycle. Every 10 years, there's a lull and then a spike, a lull and then a spike. But we'll get into that. Our legal eagle, Jason Kleiger.
Well, you guys are real estate veterans, and I've only been doing this for about 8.5 years, but you know what? All it takes is 8.5 years to see all of the stuff that you may think you know, but you have no idea. I do a lot of, single-family homes, multifamily homes. I represent buyers and sellers of those homes, but I also do things like IRC 1031 exchanges. So a lot of people don't realize that, these are situations where you have people as the investment property. They don't want to pay the taxes on that investment property when they sell it, so they roll it into a new investment property. So like I said, it doesn't take that long to be in this industry to really see and understand things that you wouldn't have understood by being here or be a freshman.
A freshman. Well,
Yeah,
8 years
yeah.
is nothing to bat an eyelash at because you could see a lot in the last 8 years, right? So, but 8 years, you and I were talking behind the scenes about how many transactions that equates to, and it's about 200.
More than that.
More than 200. Okay.
More. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going. We're
like
talking
3, 4,
We're
5?
talking under 1,000.
Under 1,000.
Yeah.
So 100.
Yeah.
So I would say that he's pretty well versed. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, 100%. But he forgot to mention the one thing that we're all well versed at, and that's being psychologists.
Oh, yeah.
First and foremost.
That's
Oh, yeah.
100%.
That's it.
100%, Jay.
That's it.
Just like we were talking about getting calls on holidays, the reason, I get calls on holidays is to be a psychologist. Something happens and they get an email about something and it has to be dealt with right then. And you know what, though?
Matters.
That's what we do.
Nothing else
That's
matters.
It does separate us from like our competition, which makes it important.
Right, because I get that a lot. People are like, oh, my other agent never calls me back, or I call this other agent, they don't answer. Oh, okay. No problem. What can I help you with?
Well, the biggest problem with a lot of us run into is the communication breakdown in these transactions. And because we're working with so many different people, listing agent, selling agent, buyer's attorney, seller's attorney, bank processors, bank underwriters, there's so many moving parts, inspectors.
Right.
Yeah, but we're sitting there and trying to set expectations. But the most important part of that transaction becomes the communication. So a lot of times there's scenarios where it's out of our, like a problem arises that wasn't facilitated or it's not our fault. Mm-hmm. But we're sitting there, and the reason why I said we're psychologists is a lot of times I'm talking these people off the fence. I'm calming them down. I'm trying to soothe them. I'm trying to set an expectation where this problem is going to get solved, what the solution is, how this is all going to kind of transpire. And people are very receptive when you explain to them and lay out what the actual plan is. They start getting really tense and aggravated when that unknown starts happening. And I think we do an unbelievable job as a team in addressing that and making sure the client experience is positive because we're setting those expectations and letting them understand, even with these pitfalls, what's to come.
And I, have seen with, I guess, millennials are the new generation that are going to start and have started buying houses. They like to know every single thing that's going on. I've had millennials, read contract front to back. They've
No way.
They oh yeah, and then they.
I know agents that haven't ever read a
contract. I know attorneys who've never read. But they love to know what's going on, and you can't fault them for that. You can't blame them for that.
No, we're living in the information age, my friend.
Exactly, and a lot of attorneys that I know, if they get a list of questions about what does the 7A little I say, and what does that mean about the contract, a lot of them will just brush off their client. They'll brush off that millennial client, or it could be any age group, generation that wants to know. And sometimes attorneys don't have that answer, and they need to speak to someone else, whether it's the realtor, whether it's a mortgage banker. They need to communicate. We mentioned communication a little bit.
Right.
And not only in the initial contract phases, but as we move down the line. There are so many times that there's that disconnect between the parties. And, a lot of attorneys have this feeling, not me, okay, but a lot of attorneys have this feeling that, oh, okay, I put them in contract, just tell me when to close, give me my net proceeds, and that's all I need to know. Where's the CD? Okay, but that's the problem. Because if something goes wrong, or if we're getting up to that commitment date, and the loan commitment date in a contract basically means that the buyer can't produce a commitment by this date, they have the choice of getting out of the contract and getting their down payment back. But this is stuff that we all need to communicate about.
Right, because it doesn't happen without all parties involved ready to.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And I don't think the average consumer starting out understands that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of individuals at play, a lot of servicers, I guess, if you want to call them servicers. But but I firmly believe that it's just the communication. And going back to Mr. Marcus's reference of communication between the two of us, it's not when we relay information to the customer client, they feel at ease because of the confidence that we have over the course of the number of years and transactions we've touched. Right. And that confidence makes them at ease. They feel at ease. They're like, okay, these guys know what's going on. They know what they're talking about. I feel much better because they're confident. And the reason it's purely experience. Right. Not to say younger attorneys, lenders, and agents can't facilitate a transaction, but experience shows. Right.
We also talk very, very smooth.
You sound
really good.
Like a velvety voice.
Isn't it just really soothing? Like, that's why people are relaxed. It's like we take that chaos out of the conversation.
You mean you don't say like every other word?
Do not say like every other word.
As we wrap up this real estate adventure, remember, every key we've shared opens a door to your property dreams. Thank you for joining us on Keys to the Castle. If you enjoyed the journey, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest updates. And you can find our contact information in the show description. Until next time, happy house hunting, and thank you for listening.